In this episode, we move from detection into decision-making, because receiving an alert is only the beginning of understanding what is happening in a cloud environment. Alerts tell you that something unusual or risky may have occurred, but they do not automatically tell you whether it represents a real compromise. In cloud systems especially, unusual activity can sometimes be explained by legitimate deployments, scaling events, or new integrations. The challenge is to investigate alerts using cloud context so that you can confidently separate benign behavior from true malicious activity. This is not about guesswork or intuition. It is about structured analysis using identity, network, configuration, and workload information together. By the end, you should understand how to approach cloud alert investigation methodically and how context transforms raw signals into informed conclusions. Before we continue, a quick note. This audio course is a companion to our course companion books. The first book is about the exam and provides detailed information on how to pass it best. The second book is a Kindle-only ebook that contains 1,000 flashcards that can be used on your mobile device or Kindle. Check them both out at cyber.author.me in the Bare Metal Study Guide series. The first step in investigating any alert is understanding exactly what triggered it. Was the alert based on a suspicious login, a privilege escalation, unusual outbound traffic, or a new internal access path? Each alert type suggests a different potential attack phase, and knowing the trigger helps guide your questions. For example, if the alert was generated by abnormal token usage, you should examine the authentication event that created the token and the identity associated with it. If the alert involved outbound data volume, you should focus on what data sources were accessed before the transfer occurred. Clarifying the triggering condition prevents investigators from wandering aimlessly through logs. Structured investigation starts with a precise understanding of the signal that raised concern. Identity context is often the most revealing piece of cloud investigation. Once you identify the account or service involved, you need to examine its normal behavior patterns. Does this identity typically perform the type of action that triggered the alert? Has it authenticated from this location or device before? Does it normally operate at this time of day? Identity context also includes reviewing recent changes to the account, such as password resets, role assignments, or policy modifications. If the identity recently gained elevated privileges and then performed sensitive actions, that sequence raises risk. Conversely, if the identity belongs to an automation service that routinely performs similar operations, the alert may be less concerning. Network context provides another dimension, especially when alerts involve lateral movement or data transfer. Investigators should examine the source and destination of connections and determine whether those relationships are expected. If a workload that normally communicates only with internal services suddenly connects to an unfamiliar external host, that is significant. On the other hand, if the connection aligns with an approved integration or partner service, the behavior may be legitimate. Reviewing network flow logs helps confirm whether the connection pattern was a one-time anomaly or part of a consistent trend. Combining network and identity context allows you to see whether the activity aligns with the role and responsibilities of the source entity. Configuration and control plane context are especially important in cloud environments because many impactful actions occur through API-driven changes. If an alert involves privilege escalation or new access paths, investigators should check whether any configuration changes preceded the event. For example, was a security group rule modified to allow new inbound traffic? Was a role updated to grant broader permissions? Configuration logs often reveal whether changes were part of an approved deployment or an unexpected manual action. If a suspicious activity immediately follows a configuration change by the same identity, that sequence may indicate malicious intent. Cloud investigation therefore requires reviewing both runtime activity and configuration history. Timing analysis helps distinguish benign anomalies from coordinated attack sequences. Investigators should look at the timeline surrounding the alert and identify related events. For instance, a suspicious login followed by enumeration of resources and then data transfer within a short window is more concerning than isolated events spread over weeks. Sequence and proximity matter because attacks often unfold in stages. Even if each event individually appears low risk, Their combination in a short time frame increases confidence in compromise. Conversely, if similar alerts occurred repeatedly during scheduled maintenance windows, the activity may align with legitimate operations. Establishing a clear timeline allows you to interpret behavior within its proper context. Environmental knowledge plays a critical role in alert investigation. Understanding the architecture of the cloud environment helps determine whether a path or action is expected. If a development environment accesses a production resource unexpectedly, that may violate design principles. However, if a recent migration introduced temporary cross-environment access, the activity may be explainable. Investigators should consult architectural documentation and deployment records when evaluating unusual access paths. Without this context, investigators may misinterpret legitimate structural changes as malicious. Familiarity with how systems are intended to operate reduces false positives and improves decision accuracy. Workload context can also clarify alert meaning. For example, if an alert indicates unusual outbound traffic from a compute instance, you should examine what application runs on that instance. Does the application normally interact with external services? Was a new feature recently deployed that requires additional outbound connectivity? Reviewing application logs alongside network logs may reveal whether the traffic corresponds to expected functionality. In contrast, if the application has no legitimate reason to communicate externally, the traffic becomes more suspicious. Aligning workload purpose with observed behavior is a practical way to evaluate risk. Another useful investigative technique is checking for corroborating signals. If an alert appears isolated, it may represent a false positive. However, if multiple detection systems highlight related anomalies, confidence increases. For example, a suspicious login combined with unusual API calls and increased outbound traffic paints a stronger picture than any single alert. Corroboration across identity, network, and storage logs helps confirm patterns. Investigators should actively search for related anomalies rather than relying solely on the original alert. This broader review can reveal whether the event is part of a larger campaign or simply an isolated irregularity. It is also important to consider the possibility of benign automation. Cloud environments frequently use automated scripts, pipelines, and orchestration systems that perform powerful actions programmatically. These actions may appear similar to attacker behavior, especially when they involve privilege changes or large data transfers. Investigators should verify whether the identity involved is tied to known automation processes and whether the timing aligns with scheduled tasks. Reviewing change management records or deployment logs can confirm whether activity was planned. Differentiating between automation and compromise requires careful attention to ownership and intent. Communication with stakeholders is often necessary during investigation, particularly when context is incomplete. For example, if an alert suggests unusual data export from a storage service, the data owner may be able to confirm whether an approved export was scheduled. Coordination prevents unnecessary escalation and ensures that legitimate business activities are not disrupted. However, communication should be structured and cautious to avoid tipping off potential insiders if insider threat is a concern. Clear investigative protocols help balance transparency with discretion. Effective investigation combines technical analysis with responsible coordination. Documentation of investigative findings is essential regardless of outcome. Even when alerts turn out to be benign, recording the reasoning process supports continuous improvement. If certain patterns repeatedly generate false positives, detection rules may require tuning. If investigations reveal new attack techniques or previously unseen access paths, monitoring coverage may need expansion. Documentation also supports audit and compliance efforts by demonstrating that alerts are reviewed systematically. Thorough records strengthen organizational confidence in cloud monitoring practices. Investigation is not just about closing tickets. It is about learning from every event. Ultimately, investigating alerts with cloud context is about assembling a coherent narrative from diverse signals. Identity behavior, network flows, configuration changes, workload purpose, and timing all contribute pieces to the story. When these pieces align toward malicious intent, the case for compromise strengthens. When context explains anomalies logically, you can confidently close alerts as benign. This disciplined approach prevents both complacency and overreaction. Cloud environments are dynamic, and effective security requires thoughtful analysis rather than reflexive alarm. By applying structured context-driven investigation, you ensure that true compromises are recognized and contained while normal operations continue smoothly.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit BareMetalCyber.com.